box, cancer shit. It's some of the best stuff in the world.
Oh, do you have macaroni and cheese?
Uh-huh.
I know. Now,
Michelle Obama's trying to get rid of it, which I really do understand because it fucked over a lot of generations of children. But fuck, when you grow up on this poison, yeah.
Have you had some of like the healthy kind of brand ones, like the Annie's or the Pirate Booty?
Those are good, and they actually do taste better. But every once in a while, it's kind of like
there's a nostalgic flavor.
There is nostalgia, and now that when you're older, you can go like, oh, I can buy this shit whenever I want. So it kind of loses some of that. But when you're a kid, it's like, oh, my parents bought it. Now then, when
it wasn't older, like, oh, they got the off-brand one.
Well, you're just happy, but it was always if it was the blue shit, then you knew you were in for some. You knew the kids like this was probably contributing to your weight problems and all that, and the kids at school continue to judge you and laugh at you. But you in that moment though, it's like it's fucking worth it. I don't give a shit. They're Mario shaped.
Well, that's the one thing is though I like the texture though. Like none of the other brands you can get like the character shapes, and I don't know what it is. You technically almost I think you get like less noodle in those character boxes, but the way that they taste with the texture, that makes it all worth it.
It sounds sad when I put it this way, kind of like there's culinary expertise to macaroni and cheese, but when it gets down to it, that like the noodles, like the cartoon character shapes or just any kind of shape, it just I don't know, the texture just makes it taste better, but there's always less. So
it's like I'll buy a SpongeBob one, even though I don't really know anything about SpongeBob, but it's just the fact it's like he's got texture.
Exactly, or you buy like
I'd rather have a Scooby-Doo or a Star Wars one, but I'll settle for SpongeBob. Even though now you can get like Star Wars like it's going out of business.
Like, get your Star Wars here.
I told you about the saddest man I saw once at grocery outlet.
Yeah, you told me about 1 sec. This already seems kind of like you already got your podcast voice going. Are we actually already recording?
Yeah, we're already recording.
So you're recording while I was like, don't record me eating. I'm just like, fucking, don't record me eating. I feel like I'm being judged. Yeah.
No, I turned the recorder on before I even turned Skype on. I did it like backward style. But no, the saddest man I ever saw once was this guy at grocery outlet who all he had was like 10 boxes of off-brand macaroni and cheese and like a case of off-brand soda. And you knew this is probably what this guy was going to eat for the next like 2 weeks.
I know that he probably had like every like sad like Cat Stevens song playing in his head while he bought this shit.
I know it was a sad sight to see, I will say. And like I'm behind him, it's like I got like a bunch of like meat and good stuff, and just kind of like, well, since Lucy died, it's it's just been me in the microwave.
Oh boy.
Oh boy.
Lucy, could sure cook back then. And I tell you, like, how long ago did she die? Oh, 40 years ago. We dated for a year. Like, oh wow, okay, well.
Dated for a year, yeah. We were just about to get married, and then she got hit by a train. just came out of nowhere, No railroad crossing signs or anything. I mean, you couldn't even hear it. It was that silent. Boy, trains, the silent killer. I mean, it didn't help that she was deaf, but...
Ever since then, this guy just looks around every corner, just slowly, like, there's no trains, right?
I know the train's gonna come and get me next.
He just peeks around a corner. There's like a train just peeking around the corner, and she looks at it, just sinks back. Like a slow chug.
Yeah, just like chugging away.
It's out for me. You just see like spreads like out the blinds. You just see like behind his neighbor's house. Just it's in the driveway. Then it just says like, "Oh, I see it. Then it like chugs backwards back into the garage. Like how it fits in there, you don't know.
He's like, "You're not getting my off-brand mac and cheese, I tell ya. That's it, you train. Go away. You don't belong here. You took away everything in my life."
It's like it only comes around when no one else is there. When he's by himself, that's when the train comes.
Yeah, it just comes. It just creeps along.
It's like the rhino in James and the Giant Peach.
Oh, you don't see the train, it's coming! And then he just like wakes up, he's like in the middle of the street, covered with dried macaroni and cheese, like soda poured over him. people are standing around looking like, but they don't really want to help. They're like, I don't know what this like poor macaroni
That's
and
old Phil.
yeah, he just soaked himself in macaroni and cheese and well, he's not even eating it with milk. He's just eating it with cold water stirred in a bowl. Right? No, that's what he does. He takes the off-brand cola, pours it in a bowl, pours the macaroni and cheese noodles in there, then puts the cheese powder and stirs it all together.
Just eats it, just like doesn't even heat it, just like it's good enough this way.
This is the only way I deserve it.
Like cutting his mouth, like his teeth are bleeding and all that. Just like the literal most saddest thing. Like so sad to make like Darren Aronofsky go like, "Fuck, I gotta turn this off."
I know it's a sad sight. But speaking of happy things, with the joy of some other people's Black Friday experiences, it made mine a little bit better. Kyle went out.
You actually had a Black Friday experience?
No, but Kyle went out and he got like a new TV or whatever. So he's like, "Hey, you want my old TV?" I'm like, "Goddamn right, I want your old TV. I adopt TVs like like poor little Ethiopian children." So of course I took in this TV. And, they couldn't figure out why it wasn't looking good, though they had it kind of hooked up to crappy coax cable, and the picture had sort of this foggy look to it. And I'm like, well, you know what? I bet you all it needs is something to go in there and clean. So I just look online, and this TV is a 56-inch TV, so now it just looks, I'm sitting 6 feet away from it because I'm used to having like a smaller TV. But all I did today in the morning is I just took apart the back, looked at a video online. I was like, okay, that's what I got to clean. Clean the mirror, clean the screen, turn it back on. Thing's crystal clear now. It was just filled with dust in the inside. So now I can live the dream of having this ginormous TV and going through Fallout. I remember back in the old days, though, like with like really big TVs, like I went to somebody's house. Or somebody's like rich dad's house, and he had one of those. It was probably only like maybe a 50-inch TV, but it was like a non-HD one. And I remember just playing PS2 hooked up to that, and it just looked like crap because it was just like the PlayStation was just not meant to be on a TV that big.
You could see all the cracks and all the.
Oh yeah, it's just like, you could play a Super Nintendo game on a large TV, but for some reason it's just like PlayStation 2. They started to suffer once they went over about 36 inches, 40 inches or so.
I never really noticed that so much, but I guess if you played a lot on it, you would notice. I will say, though, your room, though, it almost looks like Ozzy Mendez's wall from Watchmen when you walk in, because you just have all these different TVs and monitors everywhere,
Well, and I've actually cut down, because really, like, I guess I still have.
You cut down.
I cut down a little bit, There used to be
like I'm not done. I'm not done. I haven't stopped, but I'm just baby steps.
Well, because but back in the day, like in the high school days, I remember like the way I had it is I had about 4 screens set up, and now these they were all like CRTVs that I like adopted over the years or like inherited. And it was just kind of nice because you could have your buddies come over, and then everybody could hook up their systems, or you could be playing different things and have all these systems going at once. Which is, it's kind of a nice thing to be able to do that. But
well, no, I ain't judging. I just when I went over to your place the first time, like God, he has. It's like there's that line in Back to the Future 1 where he says, "Oh yeah, we he says no one has more than one TV." He's just joking with you.
Yeah, I was literally that guy who's got like
fucks. I got like 8.
Yeah, and I got 3 of them sitting right next to each other.
Guess what? I don't even watch half of them. I really watch like maybe 2 of them, maybe. I just want to know they're there.
Well, it's funny because I got one of my TVs and it's kind of like stacked in the corner with like my stereo that I have not used in so many years. I keep thinking like maybe I should get rid of it. But then every once in a while you're like, well, what if you did want to listen to some tunes on like a nice sounding unit? Yeah, I guess I'll keep it there. But I got like one of my older TVs and people sometimes look at that and go like, what's that thing there for? I'm like, that's my backup one. If one dies, I just pull that out. Don't want to go TV-less now.
It's almost like you're like hoarding for the apocalypse, just in case. The one thing you're kind of worried about is the TVs and your movie collection.
Well, yeah, gotta be prepared for your movie collection. I know now it looks bad because now I got like one TV just sitting in like the middle of like the workout section. That's like, okay, I'm gonna switch that one out with the other one, but at the moment just looks like a poor man's house where you got a bunch of rich shit sitting on the ground, but it's all cluttered.
Something over there is knocking against the mic over there, I think.
I don't know what that is. I hear a rumbling somewhere, but I don't know.
Well, anyway, I actually was getting some reading done a little bit ago, and I actually finally got. Was that all? Or did you want to talk more about TVs or anything?
No,
Or is
that's about
that
it. That was just my morning of fixing a TV and going, hey, there you go. My
one of those cases of one man's trash is another man's treasure?
Exactly, and all it takes is a little bit of messing around and cleaning and fixing, and next thing you know, it's amazing.
Yep.
Strange
Well,
enough,
I
that's one of
just
those ones I
got.
don't think I've ever paid for a TV in my entire life. I just like take in old TVs and fix them.
I hadn't for a while when I first moved here. I didn't have a TV. I went and bought it like a cheap little flat inch, like flat. Like there's no time where it's like it's a flat screen. That's a big fucking deal. Now it's like, oh yeah, it's $34. Here you go. Yeah, looks pretty good.
Yeah.
HD. It's kind of weird because I was so behind the times because I was like still used to the red, white, and yellow cord. I'm like, there's no back for that. Where the fuck is it? And like, I was
Like,
almost
oh, I need to get
going
an
around.
HDMI cable.
I just like, oh fuck, really? Yeah, I remember just being so kind of blown away. Like, wow, I really am behind the times, I guess. Because I went and asked the guy at Best Buy. He's like, yeah, no one uses those anymore. It's like, oh
Yeah, you
shit.
can't get one for a PS4.
Of course, he was younger than me. He was some high school kid.
Yeah,
He's
he's just
like,
like,
fucking
so
old man.
pushing you around. You're like, don't break my cane. I just want my composite cables. God damn it, the way that God intended.
What are you
Now,
doing?
why don't
I'm
you
just
go
talking
back to your Super Nintendo, somewhere where you can understand it.
Hey, Bill, what are you doing? I'm just beating up on this 28-year-old grandpa.
He,
Yeah,
he said his
awesome.
favorite game's Sonic the Hedgehog. What a fucking old timer!
In Mario World, can you believe that shit?
He's like, yeah, he said he played Crash Bandicoot when it came out.
Did they have shoes back then?
Yeah, you fucking cavemen. Just slapping your dicks against like a broken wall. You're like, that doesn't make any sense. Stop hassling the
I see
elderly.
2001 Space Odyssey. They did that in that movie, right?
Yeah, that's like the oldest thing I've seen is like that movie, and I was like forced to watch it. Like it was in school or something. That's how you feel.
No,
The
but
video
like-
games, though, it's like you instantly become old quicker than like anything else in life. Where like in other places, it's like you become old like at a natural age of like 60 and 70. Not in video game world, it's like you've gone 15 years too far. It's like now you're considered an old timer.
what was it? I realized that we are kind of not. We're not really old. We say this shit like, oh, we're old man, but it's just more the grasping of like, well, time really is moving on, because there's that point where I guess once they start making things for you that say, remember this, and it's something that you even kind of forgot about up until they showed you. It's like, oh wow, yeah, that really was. Like I sent you. There's this show called I think Animation Domination high definition on like Fox, like on like late night, and I never seen it on Fox, but I just seen little like segments. It's like these like little like 1 to 3 minute like animated segments,
Uh-huh.
and it seems to be primarily aimed at our generation. And there's one I sent you, and I think it's called The Space Song or Way Back When, something like that. You could probably type it in ADHD, and then like one of those two titles will probably pop up. And it's this like 16-bit pixelated like music video, and it's all talking about shit. Like it was specifically aimed at people that were like grew up in the 90s. That's solely what this thing was made for. So much so where even though they had some humor in it, it was literally made you almost teary-eyed watching it. If you grew up in this generation, it literally made, because it stops at some point kind of like, oh yeah, you used to, everything seems so young. When you're so young, everything seems so good, and you look forward to the future. But now you're here at this point, and like that kind of ends on the note that like, all right, yeah, you got to grow up, but you could still always kind of look back on it and play video games and remember these old times, And it was surprisingly like really sincere for what it is, because the show, it's one of those shows that's internet humor, so it's a lot of like quick dick jokes and all that kind of stuff. And this even had 1 or 2 in there. But I mean, it was surprising how sincere the whole thing seemed.
No, yeah, it was it was almost, it reminded me like kind of like an award-winning piece of animation. Yet I don't think it would ever win an award because it's still kind of internet-y. But that's how it kind of felt to me. It was just like, oh man, that really they really got it in there real good. And they just had like all kinds of tiny things and just like nod after nod after nod. I was pretty impressed with that.
it was even making references to things I didn't really care for, but I remember that age, and I remember kind of like I think it's called the Space Song, even though like that's only a little bit of the song, but I think it's called Way Back When or Remember When. But if you just type in ADHD, it should pop up with one of those other titles. But no, it even like something to the effect of just kind of like there's a line like ice cream with gumballs for eyes. They have one of the Ninja Turtle pops pop up. Like, oh fuck, like my heart just like it just stopped. Oh fuck, I remember that.
I haven't seen that in a long time.
Yeah, or then there's a line in there about watching Double Dare and just like watching X-Files with the lights on. I'm like, no, oh no, I remember all that shit.
It's all flashing forward. My life has just been a long repeat of episodes.
Well, that's kind of like, I guess, I will say though, even though that did like, touch me and I liked it, every once in a while, I do feel like they're jamming, because that one's pretty broad and it was just a little bit more sentimental than anything else. But I think we are at the point though now where I think we almost have too much nostalgia, because I think things that don't even like really everything's subjective, I guess, but it sort of seems like certain things don't even really deserve nostalgia or deserve like that much, like remember this shit, remember that shit, is almost coming back way too much. You know what I mean?
I do kind of agree there too, because there's, in a sense, it's like, don't get me wrong, like I'm a big fan of romanticizing and retroness and all that good stuff. I really like that, but there is a point where it gets to, it's like somebody needs a new original idea. Because that's the thing, is a lot of that stuff where you keep going like, remember this, remember that? We wrote this too. Well, you know what, we keep selling that. Or we can make something that's similar to that, yet brand new all at the same time. But it's not really that new. It's more like something you already kind of played. And there comes a point though where you're just like, you know what? Somebody needs to, break new ice here and like, let's see what we can get now. Because almost, I will say, like that kind of like late 2000s, in a sense, 2000s to probably 2020. Might be that time period where there wasn't really a ton of originality. It was just more like a combo of everything 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s, like mashed together.
Mm-hmm. Like it seems. Go ahead. Yeah.
Because you think about like a lot of the bands, like they're pulling from older artists. That's what they're doing. Where for the longest time, it just seemed like musicians just kind of try to keep trekking forward. There's always been like a go back. You get something like Stray Cats in the 80s. It's like, hey, let's do that 50s thing again. Or so on like that. But it felt like it was kind of progressive for a while. And it sounds kind of weird, but I almost feel like emo was sort of like the last like one that was kind of this like new wave of something kind of different. Where now like a lot of these bands keep pulling back from old stuff, which is cool for the first handful of bands you see. And then after a while, there comes a point where it's like, okay, well, it's a neat little genre for like, retro, like, hey, remember that? Like, I want to be Bruce Springsteen. Yeah, so do I. Let's be Bruce Springsteen. And you're like, oh, that's cool, okay. But then there comes a point where it's like, okay, well, there is a real Bruce Springsteen and a real Bob Dylan. Yeah, but
there was that.
But we could be them too. Why not?
There was that 4-year period where they seemed to every band was trying to do like the Black Keys thing, try and be kind of like a garagey, kind of bluesy rock band, and then later, now it seems like everybody's trying to do more of like a soft folk rock kind of thing. So, I mean, everything kind of comes in waves, and I'm sure the, pop culture historians will make marks of it of how we got there and all that. But some things I mean by too much nostalgia is, I mean, I guess every little thing that was ever made, to at least one person, that is the most like important thing to them or the most memorable thing to them. Just this one, for instance, like, there's some Twitter account, and I'm not going to say the name of it because I don't even know the name, but I'm pretty sure it's one of those bot accounts that it followed me, so I followed it, and then it just rehashes, hey, remember this shit? Remember that shit? And at first I'm just like, okay, and then I'm like, I gotta mute this guy. It's too fucking much. You know what I mean? And there's one for like, remember this shit? It was like, remember that board game, like Don't Wake Daddy?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. There was like an ad like, hey, you remember this? Remember that? It was like that kind of shit. Like, no, I totally forgot about that until you just brought it up. But I would have been fine with forgetting about it. Not that I'm like, oh, not that fucking game. But it's just like, it doesn't really ever. It's like one of those things like I remember it, but it doesn't really have to put like exactly that warm, fuzzy feeling to me. It's just like, I remember that. Let's move on. I think that's how most people probably feel. But who knows? I'm sure there's one or two people out there like, no, that game was my fucking childhood. But
yeah, that was like the monopoly of my people.
Like some indigenous like people. No, there's like there was
my family tribe. That was the game we played every weekend.
we just like we'd all just chant, "Don't wake Daddy."
Because you know what happened? Because if you woke Daddy, he got up, grabbed a beer, drank the whole thing in front of you, and then just started beating the shit out of you and told you, "Don't play the Sega out loud again."
There was for the commercial. So here was the concept of the game. I don't remember it exactly, but it was like concept of the game is you were playing is like a board game. You were some little kids and you had to like go across. They had this little pump thing. There's this little pump. You had to push it down enough at times, and went on a timer. And I think you'd have to reach to like a safe square when rolling, and it because by the time the timer went off, and air quotes, Daddy woke, then like you would, I guess, I'm not sure if you'd have to start from the beginning or you lose or he beats the fuck out of you. I don't know what happens. I never played the game. I'm just going off the commercial.
Yeah, it's like a game I never played either. I never knew anybody who owned it.
But there's the thing about it though, even as a kid, like this just like I remember this almost kind of made me not want to play it. When Daddy when you think it sounds like when Daddy woke, but you know what I mean. When the dad in the game woke, when you push the thing. When he woke up, it would be this little figure of this guy flipping up out of bed with this look. Like he has like night terrors. Just this god-awful
like Nom.
Yeah, like, ah! You know, like just jolting up. Like, don't wake Daddy. Ah! Charlie!
He grabs his M16 and just starts firing it throughout the house.
You know, though, like, oh, let's go into the fridge and get a snack. Can't wake Daddy. Fucking Nom killed me, man.
He chucks a Molotov cocktail at the refrigerator.
Don't wake Daddy. You know, it'll be like something like, oh, the voices, they never go away. Don't wake Daddy. You know.
No, yeah. Well, no, it is kind of like the one thing sometimes I think about, like the nostalgia thing too, is sometimes they focus too much on like one section. You know, like in a sense, regular Nintendo, like people have focused on that for it seems like almost 10 plus years. That has been like the total, like when people say like retro gaming, that's the first thing that always comes up, you know, and you'll see maybe in the sense they'll take something like maybe a modern character and then they'll pixelate them, but like do them in like 8-bit style, or the music will be 8-bit style, or you'll see a cartoon show and they do that 8-bit style. But instead, nobody says like, hey, why don't we try 16-bit or 32-bit every once in a while just to break up the mold?
I think that like once, maybe it's just me here, and I guess we'll never find out. But I bet like once we or like the generation behind us, once they die, they probably won't have all this nostalgia for 16-bit stuff. Like I kind of wonder every once in a while because our parents grew up on the Beatles, so we kind of grew up on the Beatles because everybody from our generation, their parents said, check this shit out, you know?
Yeah.
So I'm kind of wondering, like, not 30 years, but say like a couple generations from now, will the Beatles still be a big thing? Will we still see them on as many posters and all that? And that's not me trying to discredit them, but I kind of wonder, like, sometimes these things that seem like they're never going to go away. Like, they made their mark in history, but they're still kind of relevant and popular. Do you think that... I mean, now we're actually even getting people being cynical towards them and articles about the Beatles weren't that great. Look at these other bands that came out around the same time or whatever. But I'm kind of wondering if, like, not just that, but I mean, just multiple things that seem like they're here to stay will eventually just kind of fade off, you know?
Well, here's the thing. Can you think of an artist 100 years ago that people are still like, oh my god, that band is the fucking shit?
I can think of people reaching back. I mean, probably the oldest band I can think of. Well, Mozart, but or like Beethoven.
Classical music. But still, the classical music though. Most people hate classical music though. Like, I would say probably 8 out of 10 people hate classical music.
How you hate it, I don't know. Like,
I don't know either because that's like I've always liked classical music a lot, but I know a lot of people hate it. So,
like, where's the drop? The what? The drop. It's not dubstep. It don't work that way, you know.
Yeah, or what's like? But think about that. Like 100 years ago, can you think of a band that's 100 years old right now that people are still like really remember? Not just kind of like, okay, a guitar players remember him, or people that are really in the music remember him. Just everybody's kind of like,
No.
oh yeah, that music, yeah, I throw that all the time.
At the same time, though, we do live in an age where everything's recorded, though. So, I mean, maybe they will still. I mean, I hope I'm wrong. I hope they still are popular and they're always remembered. But I can't help but wonder if, like, they'll know about them. They'll be easier to find, because everything's recorded. We have snapshots of everything. But I'm wondering if they would just still seem as relevant or as important by that time.
Well, because you also wonder too, like if you do say about another 30, 40 years, how much more crap will be recorded by that point, and then it'll just make the list of stuff to go through so thick that something like the Beatles could be technically kind of lost in there, to
Yeah.
another generation. Because I do feel like at some point, something's not going to carry on. It's not going to carry its nostalgia, and I'm not saying that's because I really like the Beatles, but I do think that, I mean, how many like other like kind of things have lasted 100 years and is still being like, man, every day me and Pops get out the fiddle and we play those classic Irish tunes. That doesn't happen too often.
I think some things are kind of here to stay for a while, and I'm not saying this just out of favoritism, but I think as long as they make this one particular thing, it will always find a way to come back. Like they've been making Mickey Mouse cartoons since 1928. So he may not be their biggest thing, but they've been making him since 1928. So I think since they never stopped, he's kind of here. And like with good enough marketing, he's kind of here to stay. Maybe eventually one day Disney might crash down. And same thing with kind of like Marvel and DC, because they got characters that are about like 80 years old. I mean, I think Superman by this point is like 76 or 77.
Yeah, because I think
that.
because Batman's 76, so Superman's probably 77. Because I think he's only about a year before Batman, and then because Robin's 75 now.
Yeah, so I think it's one of those things like since they keep on making them, they don't. I mean, they change here in and out, and I'm sure there's plenty of obscure comic characters just disappeared just out of lack of appreciation. Just people didn't really like them, or they didn't like click with the times or something. But I'm kind of wondering. This is actually a little. This is a little sad admitting this right here, and I'm not gonna. This is gonna make me sound. This make a lot of people lose respect for me right now. I have a couple fears about when I die, and that's like one particular fear is I'm assuming when I die I'm going to see it coming and I'm going to be in a hospital bed or my deathbed.
There's going to be a hobo.
And those moments,
like he's like, "Can I buy them from you?"
That has not crossed my mind. That might be fear number 3, but no. In all honesty, though, I mean, probably one of my biggest fears is probably not even so much dying, just kind of like right beforehand, about to face it. You know what I mean? And kind of thinking, was everything accomplished? Was it all worth it up to this point? Did I do good? That's kind of like my biggest fear. Be like, God, this got really fucking deep. Here's where it doesn't get so deep anymore. My second, not so much fear, but saddest thing I realized, if we're right about things keep on coming out, that means there probably always going to be another Batman movie about to come out and always another Batman comic arc. That means at some point when I'm on my deathbed, it's not like they just stopped, they're done. Just like, man, there's one out and I'm not going to see it.
Yeah, there's going to be that one. There's going to be that movie you'll just never be able to see, or that game you'll never be able to play, or so on.
And they're not going to have movie theaters in hell, so fuck it. I'm fucked.
Well, see, now here's the difference, though. It's like something like Batman and Superman and things like that. Well, they can keep making different stories off that, but like something like music, though, it's not. I mean, Paul McCartney's making some albums here, Ringo's making some albums here, but technically, that's going to end at some point. The only band that I notice is trying to continue their legacy for the future is something like Kiss, where they have this idea that at some point they'll be able to pass on the Kiss look to some other people, and it'll carry on.
It's like one of they have to go across do some like trials, the penitent the penitent man like kneels. They have to go through some kind of like Kiss kind of like Temple of Doom in order to like earn the mantle.
Yeah, well, because
the cat.
I was listening to a podcast of Paul Stanley on it, and that's what he was talking about. He's like, what we want to do is get the Kiss legacy to continue on, and that's what he was thinking. He's like, he just wants to pass this thing on so that it's never stopping. It's like, when we get too old, somebody else will put the makeup on, because it's technically, they look at themselves as like, it's characters. And
just like one of them's like Gene Simmons, like, well, I was watching this show called Avatar: The Last Airbender, and it really got me fucking thinking, man, when I die, what if my spirit went into some other shit and I could just like, move like shit around, but I realized with, like elements and all that, but I realized, fuck, I can't do that, but I can play a bass. So what if I found a way to do the next best thing? Which was you, dressed like me.
Yeah, exactly. So somebody at some point is going to take on the mantle of that. Because you could say that, in a sense, Peter Criss and Ace Frehley's mantle has already been passed on a couple times. So all it's going to take is that when Paul and Gene get too old, they'll pass it on, and Kiss will continue like the Kiss legacy. Which I guess like if you went on long enough, it wouldn't be so weird. It's gonna feel weird at first when somebody does it. Be like, that's not Kiss. That's just some other guys in costumes. But let's just say it's gone on for 3 generations and stuff. Then people will accept it almost like it's a 007 thing. Like, no, at some point, or Doctor Who, like they gotta change.
They're all Time Lords or some shit.
Yeah, like that.
There is like, they're all like, I could see it being, well, I guess it's also one of those things like in comics, whenever, like right now, Captain America, Sam Wilson, the Falcon, is Captain America. Even though I like that, it's going to go back to Steve Rogers. It is. It's not, I mean, if they do have the balls, I mean, I'll be honest, I like Steve Rogers more. But if they kept Sam Wilson, I would give him credit just for having the balls to stay there and keep on doing that. But eventually it's going to go back to what we all know. So it's just something to boost up the sales, try something different. But they can't do that with Kiss.
You know what happened? I bet you back in like the 50s when like say like they switched to Barry Allen from like Jay Garrick or whatever, that there were some guys like, dude, they're just going to go back. They're going to go back. I know it. Like this Barry Allen guy, he's just going to be around for a little bit. They're going to finally go back. Just to realize later that, and same with like the Green Lantern one too. They're like, this Hal Jordan guy, he's just a new guy. He's just a new face. They'll switch back.
I can see that possibly being like a time when they didn't really give a fuck about continuity. I mean, I'm sure there was probably a few readers for like, they'll go back, but I could see it being more of a thing of being kind of like, they didn't really have a lot of continuity back then. It was kind of like, this week, the Flash goes against Captain Cold. Da-da-da, that's what a lot of it was for a long time. So
I'm not talking about the people making the comic books. I'm talking about the people that was reading the comic books. And that you like, what if you just went like, well, dude, that Flash is my favorite guy ever, and then they switch it on you, and you're like, what the fuck? Like some like 50s kid, like the fuck.
Well, originally, I mean, they changed it several times, continuity, But was it one of those things where Jay Garrett, is it more like what it is in the Flash show where he was from Earth 1? Or is it he was the original Flash from back in the day? Because I've seen 2 different versions of that, I think.
Well, all those characters were like the original version, and then they did pretty much in the 50s, that's when they did pretty much like they've done with the New 52
Silver
and stuff.
Age.
Yeah, they said, like, let's just switch this up a bit, because the sales were down a bit, so like they changed it all around, kind of made new versions of all these characters. And then later on, they kind of put it together where it's like, well, no, those old guys are still part of it too. They just kind of were like the previous guys. Sort of how like the original Green Lantern, it's like he's not technically, he just happens to share the same name, but it's not like he's part of the Green Lantern Corps, but he's still and that's when they made the Justice Society of America, where it's kind of like, well, here's where all the old-timey people can hang out. Here's a senior citizen home for, all the people that aren't Batman or Superman. And I like how like Batman and Superman technically the oldest characters of them all, but for some reason they're like, we're always part of the young crowd, part of the in team. Like Jay Garrett's like, Bruce, you're older than me. Yeah, well, still you gotta stay hip in this day and age.
Yeah, you gotta stay current.
Wally, I went to college with Wally. I mean, come on, I was trying to fit in, trying to pick up some college chicks and stuff. You know what I'm talking about, Wally? Remember that time that I showed up with you with the Teen Titans? I brought beer. I was the cool guy there. And I was like, hey, let's see if we can get this Raven girl to take her top off.
Like, all the Teen Titans are, like, probably, like, 18. By this point, Batman's, like, 37.
No, he's more like he's, like, 52.
47.
He's just so old and crusty. Because it's like Tim Drake sitting there. It's like, Bruce, yeah, I think you're getting a little old to try. No, I'm never too old, man. I was here when Dick was in the Teen Titans. I was here when Jason was in the Teen Titans. And now I'm here for you, dude.
He's like in the Batmobile, just cruising around the Titans Tower. Yo, kids, want to go for a ride? He turns up the radio. He's like, he like cranks up the radio, like slow ride down there, take it easy. You guys know this song?
Starts doing wheelies in the Batmobile, like, whoa, I'm so cool. All the Teen Titans out there's like, who's the guy? Not fucking Batman, that old fart out there just ripping up the fields and shit. Like, can't that guy just go to his Justice Society like all the other old timers do?
Like Cyborg's like arms crossed, like he's riding through the garden. I worked all day on that fucking garden, man.
Yeah, he thinks he's so cool.
It's got this Batman just being the creepy old guy that wants to stay young. He's just like, don't send me back. I don't want to be old.
But it's always how it is. Like, it's funny. You'll see, like,
Superman just can't age. Like, Clark doesn't age the same way.
no, see, well, Clark and Wonder Woman can kind of get away with it because, like, yeah, like the age thing. But Batman is just like, you think about it, it's like, okay, he's older than all these other guys, than the original Flash, the original Green Lantern, and all these. But for some reason, these guys end up being way older.
He just injects himself in an ungodly amount of, like, what was it? Botox.
Gotta stay fresh, no wrinkles.
That's why I always keep, like, a frown face. It's easier that way. This is me smiling. Just, like, the end of the lips just curve up ever so slightly.
Well, speaking of old man Batman, we both got the new Frank Miller's Dark Knight 3, which I'll have to say is a pretty darn good first issue.
I'll say that. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, because sometimes, when you get like a single issue, you read it, and there's not like a whole lot to talk about in one singular issue. You almost need to get like all 6 of them to have something to talk about. Because you get the first one, you're like, well, what happens in this one? Well, it shows, a story, and all of a sudden he appears on page 6, and then there's some talking, and it's over. I gotta wait till the second one comes out.
Well, this one, I think that like. It was one of those things where I usually don't get individual issues just because, I don't really have a whole lot of patience because I just know, like, I want to read it so badly right now, but then I just end up saying, oh, fuck it, I'll wait for the graphic novel. That way I don't really know what I'm missing. And I knew it just came out, and I was curious. I'm like, all right, well, I'll just get the first issue and see where it goes. Another big reason I don't collect the single issues most of the time is because they have a lot of ads. And this one, though, not one single ad in it. Not one ad whatsoever. It was more of like a mini graphic novel.
Well, I will say that nowadays, though, at least for DC Comics, the ads are much better. I mean, like, there still is ads in there, but you don't get dumb ads, and most of the ads, they're just for other DC books. It's kind of like they've done away. Like, you're not going to get, like, a 6 foot of bubblegum ad or, like, a Pop-Tart ad anymore. Like, they don't have that crap anymore.
Yeah, and I bought like a handful of single issues, and Marvel's kind of bad with their ads still. They're pretty bad, but I will say though that because I got that one, and I got Max Landis's first issue of Superman American Alien, which I'll get into later. But Dark Knight 3 though, I actually first off let me go back and say I actually finally got Dark Knight Strikes Again because it was one of those books I'd flipped through it. And I just had a feeling I wouldn't like it. So I kept on putting it off, and not being in that way of being kind of like, oh, it's not the same thing, fuck it, it ruined it for me. That kind of pisses me off when I hear people say, it ruined the new one, the first one for me. Like, how did it ruin it for me?
Yeah, there's no way that it can ruin it, unless for some reason somebody went out and physically took every copy of it and burned them so that there was no way to ever see or read it again. That's the only way that they could ruin it.
Like, my opinion is, unless you actually do that or you do something to the effect of, like just, if you don't like the way where it goes, just so you say to yourself, I mean, this some people may have trouble saying this, or thinking this way, it stopped at number 1. It just stopped at 1. That's all you had to see. It just stopped at 1. That's as far as it ever got. You
just be like, well, that was just a dream Batman had one day.
Yeah, this is a parallel universe thing. Don't worry about it. So I finally got Strikes Again just because, like, well, number 3 is coming out, and I can't exactly call myself a big fan of it if I don't at least check it out and give it a chance. So I went out and got it. And I will say I am by no means a fan of the art of the book. And it was kind of the art that was scaring me off because I'd flip through the book. I could not make heads or tails of what the fuck was going on most of the time. But when you actually read it in the context, it actually that says something about the art. The writing actually it sometimes has to explain what's going on. I mean, not like a narrator saying kind of like, as Carrie Kelly entered the building. It would be more like something like the characters, they find a way to fit in the dialogue. their inner monologue or what they're looking at to say, oh, they got Barry in a hamster wheel or something like that. So strictly in the sense of a story, I like it. I thought it was actually pretty good. I mean, I'm not big on like be like, yeah, go ahead, tell us about something that came out 15 years ago. But
it's one of those books though that a lot of people still never read though. That's it. I think a lot of people were always just kind of turned off from it. And especially if, let's just say, if you're getting into comics, that's definitely probably not gonna be the first Batman book you pick up, nor like maybe the 20th Batman book you pick up. It's almost like you got to be really into Batman to say like, I got to read Dark Knight Strikes Again.
Yeah, and the thing about that book is when you like the artwork is just so crazy. There's moments where the artwork looks kind of cool and interesting. There are other moments though where it just looks so off the wall, and they have they have the broadcasters in like Dark Knight Returns and all that, but this one the broadcasters are in there so much, and they're all drawn. I'm pretty sure it's an intentional thing. The way they're drawn looks so bad and so stupid. I think Frank Miller wants you to hate all these talking heads and all these different like newscasters. I think that's why he has them there. But it makes you just want to hurry up. I could see it being kind of like a social kind of like maybe a social experiment kind of thing. Try to make you hate these people so we can get back to the action. I can see him doing something weird like that.
Well, I think Frank Miller's also one of those kind of guys. I think he really hates generally like newscasters and just these extremists and so on. I think because he almost reminds me like he's got sort of that like conspiracy theorist kind of guy, and that the media is kind of evil. Because in like all kinds of his books, he has that in there. Like there's other books too that aren't even Batman, and they have like the media talking heads always in there, kind of saying their stuff. I will say, like, even like originally in Dark Knight Returns, that was always kind of like my least favorite part. Was always like, okay, like I always just felt like those were sort of like the unnecessary parts. Like you could almost cut half of that out. That's kind of what makes the movie sort of nice. It's like, oh, it just doesn't have too much. It just has enough of it that you get it, but you don't have to be overwhelmed with it. Yeah. By now, it's like you kind of like always kind of expect it, so it doesn't like turn me off as too much. But there is a point though where it's just kind of you almost can skim that stuff. You don't need to sit down and like delve into it. And I think that's how it's supposed to be read too. I think those newscasters, it's just supposed to be just it's like background noise in a sense. It's almost like if you were at a restaurant and there's a TV on, and you don't really mean to be looking at the TV, but it's just there with flashing pictures and sound. You kind of get distracted by it, and that's sort of I think how it's supposed to be in the book.
Yeah, and I actually ended up liking the book. I thought it was pretty good. It's not Dark Knight Returns good, but it's actually good, and I think people are a little harsh on it. I think everyone was just mad that it wasn't Dark Knight Returns, what the version they were hoping for. It was something different, Yeah. And plus, I heard something to the effect of like he was actually writing that book, and then 9/11 happened in the middle of writing it, and kind of changed his opinion, and that's kind of where the whole Metropolis thing, how Metropolis basically gets destroyed, that's where all that comes from. So I think that you said we actually talked about this before. I think every book, like the first, like the Dark Knight Returns, even though it's set in the future, it's meant to be kind of like a statement on the 80s where Dark Knight.
Well, because it's got Reaganism and it's got gangs and it's got all this kind of stuff going on.
Yeah. So, I think it had like things with the punk rock movement in there as well,
Yeah, well, where you look at Strikes Again and everything's all like it's all internet based, it's all cybery. It's kind of a mix of like because I think it started out as sort of being like a Y2K book, and then it progresses into like a 9/11 style book. You know what I mean? It's almost got like a Matrix influence to it too. The president's not real. He's a hologram. All this kind of stuff. When it shows like it's got like the Bat Chicks thing, or not the superhero chicks thing, and like they're all got like this internet kind of like almost like come chat with me, come chat with the superhero girls or whatever. It was like, it's got like a website underneath it and so on.
Mm-hmm. Like I think that was supposed to be a whole like kind of like I mean I already used this word earlier, but I think it's almost trying to be kind of like a whole like what's the word I'm looking for here? I guess into like exploit, like almost kind of like what's the word I'm looking for here? Almost the sense of like exploitation sales, I guess, something to that effect, like shock value. And sometimes you kind of need shock value to break the system because you had all these hardcore, like conservative, like newscasters, like these sluts, burn them at the cross, kill them. And then like Batman's the one that goes there. No, they're cool. Hey kids, let's wreck some shit, Yeah,
well, because like there's always like those like ladies to her like shows like a big fat lady. She's like, she makes me feel fat.
Yeah, you read it a little bit ago too.
Well, I went back and reread it again too, which I will say, like the second time that I read it, like I enjoyed it even more because I kind of like understood it a little bit better the second time through. Because the first time I read it, it's like I got it, but then there's like parts where it's like, because it is kind of like mixed mashed, and yeah, some of like the pictures and stuff don't make you have like no idea what's going on. You just look at the picture and you're like, I don't know what the hell that is.
Okay, Brainiac is a frog. There's a big fat guy. Oh fuck, that's Lex Luthor. Okay, and there is that Supergirl? Oh no, that's Superman
Wonder
and
Woman's.
Diana's wife or wife, kid, whatever. Okay, interesting. I don't know.
But
My coffee just ran out, but yeah.
but yeah, no, and it is a really interesting one. Yeah, it does have kind of like the ending's a little bit. I don't know, like it's one of those ones I could probably do something that's a little bit different. But
I will.
because like I
Go
just
ahead,
don't
cut
like
you
how
off.
Dick Grayson's kind of looked upon as being a bad guy. It reminds me of the same way how Arkham Knight they make Jason Todd this like bad guy. I'm like, no, that's not who he is. But then again, I guess
Well,
you could
he
say
was.
when you look at All Star Batman and Robin, then you go, well, maybe that version where it's like, boy, you're drafted into a war. I know your parents just died like 10 minutes ago, but put on the battle gear. Let's go out and kick some ass.
Yeah, you kind of see how he does get there, but I will say regarding that though, I do think that this Batman it is like an alternate reality. So I think that you probably could get away with doing something extreme, like having Dick Grayson be the bad guy, even though it's not my personal preference because that's one of my favorite characters. But at the same time, though, if they suddenly did like a Deus Ex Machina thing where suddenly Dick Grayson, like, oh, that actually wasn't Dick Grayson, that was a clone, like something they did, like, and there's the Batman Beyond run. I mean, it started off as a short run, and then they made it an ongoing series. The first run they had, which was a continuation of the animated series, and then bringing in continuity of the actual comics, which is pretty interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Because he went up against Hush, which was interesting. Instead of not being Hush, they thought it was Dick Grayson, and they found out, oh wait, it was a clone of Dick Grayson. So, and like a mad, crazy clone. So, I think it would be and I think it'd be pretty cool if it ended up being like, all right, that wasn't really Dick Grayson. That was just something, something else.
Yeah, hopefully
But
Dark Knight 3 that
whatever.
comes around. But yeah, I don't know. I think it is one of those ones like for some reason I don't think that Frank Miller really likes like a man version of Robin. I think that's kind of where the whole Carrie Kelly thing came, which don't get me wrong, I really like Carrie Kelly a lot. But I think that's why he kind of made that. He put Carrie Kelly in there going like, hey, this is actually how Robin should be if he's going to dress like that.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. I think that it's one of those things like it's just like, look, a man wears pants. I
Yeah.
think that's maybe his thing where he's coming from. But like, okay, then just put him in pants. Like, well, I don't want to be disrespectful to the original creators like Bill Finger and Bob Kane. Like, well, I mean, you cut his head off, then threw him off in a volcano. Fuck you. Well, okay.
Yeah, exactly. One of those ones. But once it kind
But
of gets around to Dark Knight 3, the cool thing about Dark Knight 3 is that has the feel of sort of what I think people have kind of wanted in a way, because like the artwork, what makes it kind of neat is it looks like Dark Knight Returns, but just drawn even better. If that makes any sense. Because the whole thing about like Frank Miller, like past his Marvel days, like all his artwork's always kind of like it's not really it's like not perfect, but that's almost what makes it really cool.
yeah, yeah, and I think that like what you said just now, I think they're trying to make it look more like Frank Miller artwork. Like make it like kind of his signature, but don't make it look like a direct ripoff of his artwork. You know what I mean? Like it could still take place in the same world. Because when I first read Dark Knight Returns, I really did not like the artwork. But as time went on, I can't explain how or why. I actually liked the artwork way more. Maybe because I got a glance that strikes again. It's like, oh fuck, But Dark Knight Returns, though, I now really like that artwork in that book, and it looks like they're pulling more from that. And I think Frank Miller, I think he's not. I think he's only doing like him and Brian Azzarello are writing the story, and then they got Frank Miller doing a handful of like just individual issue covers. One of the covers is actually one of the cover like well actually what I think something they're going to do with each book, they actually have miniature books within them. In this book, they had like I think they're going to do like what's going on with other DC characters in this version of the DC universe.
Mm-hmm.
And this one, it's the Atom. And we got information it comes in a little mini book within this book that's crucial to the actual story going on.
Yeah, because it makes me wonder, like, if there are some versions that, like, if you didn't have that little Atom book in there, that'd throw you off.
Yeah, and it's like right in the middle of the book. It's almost kind of like lightly. I mean, there's a little sticky thing that sticks to it, so you can just so like you just put that right back in there. So I thought that was kind of cool. But it seems to be like where this book seems to be going is it's actually quite simple. Not when I say what happens, it's not really like a whole lot, but they kind of like drag it out enough, and the artwork is interesting enough to kind of grab you. It opens up with like Batman. Well, there's like a couple of gangster, like little like kind of like thugs talking about like, oh man, the cops are chasing after me, but then Batman stopped them. So like, Batman's not real. Fuck you. Yeah, he is real. And then like,
And they're talking kind of
Batman
like,
going in.
because Frank Miller likes to always kind of like, he must just look at children or whatever and go, this is how they talk. Because he sort of did in the 80s with like the slang, like, Billy Berserk, man. And in this one, he's got the thing where everybody's talking on their cell phones of like broken English. So he writes all their texts, like they're sending it back to each other through text messages. So it's kind of hard to read, and it's almost like a little bit of a struggle, I guess, because like I'm used to like writing full sentences out in text messages. So
Like reading Clockwork Orange for the first
yeah,
time.
it has like that feel like to it, but in a sense, it does give it away that he can write down like "fuck you, Batman's real, no bullshit there," but doing it like "f you" and then BS for bullshit and things like that. Because Frank Miller loves to
Yeah.
swear. It just seems like his characters are always swearing in books, and he's almost like the only guy who gets away with it, like in DC. It seems like, other than maybe a few other books.
Well, I think that like because they consider like Frank Miller's like Batman stuff to be really kind of prestigious high art stuff for like being comics. Because I remember back when like I first read Dark Knight Returns, they'd say something like they actually said like bullshit, and I was like, oh my god, they actually just said bullshit in a Batman book and then bleep it out like damn it, or I'll kick your ass, or hell. Okay, I can see that. But when they actually drop like bullshit, and then like I think somewhere in like Strikes Again they said they call Batman a pussy. It was like, oh wow, I'm surprised they did that. But then you said in the original print of the All Star Batman and Robin Boy Wonder, when Barbara Gordon is fighting off all these thugs and getting knocked around, the version I have, there's all these black bars over what she's saying. But you said, you fucking cocksucking fucking ass, fuck you. Kind of
Yeah,
like
apparently, like if you got the first run of those ones, like issue 8 or 9, whatever it was, yeah, there was no censors on it. And I was like, oh, okay, because Barbara Gordon's just like, fuck this shit, I'm going out here and kicking ass, and I'm going to do what's fucking right, and blah, blah, blah. It's just like she's swearing. And all I know is that Frank Miller must be one of those guys, maybe like a Dan Jurgens, who looks at the fucking youth, and he just goes like, what the fuck is wrong with these people?
I think that Frank Miller, because like Dan Jurgens, I mean, my only thing about Dan Jurgens
It's
is I
all
know
based off like the Death of Superman kid.
and he's like, I think he's the one that wrote that issue with the angry like teen. But I mean, I know I know more of his work as an artist, like his Green Arrow, like his new 2 Green Arrow work and older work. But as a writer, though, it was just kind of like these stupid fucking kids don't respect the past. Where Frank Miller seems to kind of come in and just be like, no, 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 we can use the kids. They just need a good to the fucking face every once in a while.
Well, yeah, because he's always using the kids, but like the way he always writes it, though, is like he almost just looks like he must like said like, hey, my niece or somebody or this, just she swears with like every third word. So that's how I'm going to write Barbara Gordon as. That must be how the kids are these days, And I think that like
I have this one nephew that keeps on saying queer. Everything is queer, so I'm going to put that for Dick Grayson.
yeah, so and I also his mom says queer too. So Black Canary will say it as well. Like who cares?
No, but like I
Well, you
actually,
find
so
queer
basically
offensive? It's like, it's 2008. Well, queer's not an offensive word. I say it all the time. I look at my dog and I go, hey, you're quite queer. I look at my mom and I say, hey, queer, get over here. I'm Frank Miller. I'm like, fuck you.
I'm not defending the word, but it was one of those things. Even when we were kids, when we were kids, though, that was almost on its way out.
But when we were kids, there was always that game called like, we're gonna go out and play Smear the Queer.
And that's as far as it went. You never really called, hey, queer. That might happen once in a while, but it almost seems kind of like, that almost seems like you're trying to be offensive, but trying to be PC about it at the same time.
Yeah, exactly. And then I remember just like, it would throw kids off in Lord of the Rings. They're like, Gandalf keeps saying everything's queer. It's like, do you think him and like Frodo are like butt fucking or something in the book? It's like, they must be. They're calling each other queers all the time.
Oh yeah, totally. Tolkien, he wrote that in the original thing. It's all, you just gotta read between the lines, bro. Yeah, you sure about that? Yeah, I read about it online, on the internet, yeah.
It's pretty much just like a butt fucking parade is what that book is all about. Like that's what it should say on the back cover.
That's what the Fellowship really is. It's a bunch of dudes that like bang each other. They're not really,
You ever notice
really
there's like no woman in the Fellowship? It's just like a bunch of dudes and they all got a ring. Pretty gay to me.
Did you ever read the book? Did you ever read the book? Oh, I glanced at the Spark Notes and just kind of filled in the blanks.
Yeah, just somebody said that there's a lot. I saw there's a lot of queer in there.
I just saw like a big like train of like guys walking by a sunset. Just said Fellowship of the Ring. I'm like, oh fuck, only one thing could be happening there.
It looks like a butt fucking parade to me. But
I'm not seeing that movie.
I'm
Christian, goddammit.
In All-Star Batman and Robin, I will say that even though, like, don't get me wrong, Jim Lee's one of my favorite artists, but I almost feel like that book should have had Frank Miller-like art in it to make it feel more like the way that those characters are. Like, sometimes I feel when you see Jim Lee art, but then you see it written by Frank Miller, it does have a kind of weird dynamic to it.
I liked, well, the one thing about that book is, I mean, well, I still had, like, you know, it's not my favorite book, my favorite Batman book or anything, but it definitely...
I like that one a lot.
Like, I liked it. It was one of those things, when I first read it, I was kind of like, well, because at that point, all I really read was Year One, which is perfect to me, Dark Knight Returns, which is just about, even though, let me put it this way, I actually think I like Returns more than Year One, but I have no complaints about Year One. Where Returns, it just seems the news broadcasting thing is just a little too much.
Yeah.
But beyond that though, I think that's like the perfect one of the perfect Batman stories. But I think it's just because I was at that point where I was kind of like, Batman wouldn't beat a kid. Batman wouldn't do this. But I'm like, well, this is an alternate universe, and it's not the main Batman. I could be more forgiving towards certain things. I still don't think Batman would do some of the things he did do in that book, but I still really enjoyed it. So I think that Jim Lee's artwork is, like, that was actually one of the only things the book was praised about. Like, the artwork is amazing. Everything else fucking sucks, which I don't agree with.
Yeah, people
but I
like,
think
they
the artwork
hate
was really
that
good.
book so much. I'm like, dude, what the fuck? Like, it's just one of those negative things. And I'm like, I think that book's actually, I like it. There's the only thing that I don't really like about it, there's like small things. Sometimes the repeat of dialogue, like Vicky Vale going like, I have a date with Bruce Wayne. A date with Bruce Wayne. Bruce Wayne's a date. Date with Bruce Wayne. Bruce, date. And it's like, okay, we get it. You got a date with Bruce Wayne. You know.
How cool is that? Is what
yeah.
I'm with.
And but even the things too that like almost seem kind of bad, like the queer and stuff, it almost just makes me laugh nowadays, just because it just seems so out of place. I mean, like, yeah, I mean, there's like small things you could like nitpick in that, but overall, I just think that it's a pretty good story. My only thing is I just really wish they finish it, and I almost have a feeling that will never be finished. I think it's one of those ones they'll talk about it, you know. And since this Dark Knight 3 looks like it might be doing pretty good so far, that might even get them farther away from ever finishing that book. Who knows?
And I know it's only on issue 1, but it hasn't really gotten any negative reviews as far as I've seen. Maybe I'm sure there's somebody.
Yeah, there's somebody out there who's
I've heard
like,
nothing.
It is fucking shit, just like everything else he created after Dark Knight Returns.
Yeah, so it wouldn't surprise me, but at the same time, though, I think if this book does do good enough, they'll just say, okay, well, you got 3 issues to wrap this bitch up. But
for the 10 people out there that really want you to finish that book.
Well, even if it's like just I don't know, it just seems so weird to me. It just so we barely even tapped into the book, just about Frank Miller and other shit.
They're like, hey,
we'll get other books he wrote. That came out like 5 to 20 years ago by this point, But like no, I'll just say this real quick. We'll actually get back to Dark Knight 3. It just seems so weird to me that a book written by Frank Miller, drawn by Jim Lee, they said, you know what? No, we're good. That surprises me that happened. That you got 2 of the biggest guys in the business, and that they said, regardless of what the reviews were, I would assume that maybe the book just wasn't selling. And it was right when like Batman Begins and Dark Knight was coming out.
Yeah, because it came out I almost want to say right around Dark Knight because it was 2008. Because I remember that book came out right after we sort of did our like Drunk Batman live action one, and that was like the first thing we were like, dude, fucking Frank Miller's ripping us off.
Yeah, which I think is just a coincidence.
Yeah, I think that's all it is. But we were technically there before. We can always say that.
Because he didn't really seem like I'm the goddamn Batman until he got to All-Star. Well, he even seemed a little. I'll be honest. Maybe I'm not trying to discredit us, thinking back on it, because we never read Strikes Again until later, he actually sees, like, I'm the goddamn Batman, fuck you, by Strikes Again.
That's
he kind of has that vibe to him.
It does go farther in that one, so I guess it is there. And I think it's just one of those, we just happened to pick up Batman, All-Star Batman and Robin right at that same time, and it was like, wait, what the fuck?
Even though we didn't read Strikes Again by that point, so it was just a kind of coincidence. But, yeah, there is that. What was I going to say? Oh, yeah. So it just seems weird. It just seems so weird they never picked up and finished that story, you know? And I just kind of want a conclusion. Even if I wasn't a huge fan of it, I mean, I liked it. I thought it was good. I just want a conclusion more than anything.
Yeah,
else. Because it just ends so ends so abruptly. Kind of like, yep, you're a soldier now. Oh yeah, by the way, there's a girl that dresses up like Batgirl and goes out fighting. Oh, and on top of that, the Joker's out there, and oh, there's the Nazi chick that he's banging, on the side. So, and then we end up like, oh, Catwoman's there too, but we're not even gonna really see what she does. Here's just like a splash page spread of her,
Yeah, it's like 3 issues would probably be the perfect way to finish it, but I would take 1 or 2 if that was the case. Like, if they had to wrap it up super quick in 1 issue, I'd be fine with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But right before we get to Dark Knight 3, let's take a quick break.
Hey, I'm Rob.
And I'm Slim.
And we do things like eat hot dog smoothies and have our interns shit in adult diapers.
Yakov Spiridov loves us. He raves about us on Twitter.
We do a lot of great interviews with musicians, actors, and comedians.
We've also gotten a bunch of death threats and lawsuit threats.
If any of these things intrigue you, then check us out. Find us on SoundCloud, iTunes, Stitcher, and YouTube.
Rob and Slim, internet radio at its finest. Pew 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 pew.
Go back to the podcast. Okay, I got my fat issue of Dark Knight 3 just to glance through.
Well, what if we have like a read along, like to turn the page when you hear turn the page, just like drunk Batman sound effects.
I don't know, except for this is kind of a little bit longer than a regular issue, so that could take some time. But
yeah, I don't think we should do a read along though.
But no, overall, I was pretty darn impressed with this. This, to me, just feels like if you like anything Frank Miller, you're going to like this. And then just the artwork itself, it's just the thing, it's got the Frank Miller look, but then it's just really well detailed and really well drawn.
Mm-hmm. Like this book right here, I do think that it's one of those ones where, I mean, I can't think of anything to complain about. I really like the first issue. I got a feeling what Frank Miller is going to do later down the line is probably, I mean, he's done it with every Batman book since Dark Knight Returns. Since Dark Knight Returns, he does something that's going to piss some people off. Like hardcore fans of Superman do not like Frank Miller for obvious reasons.
He said though in this one though, he's like, you're going to like Superman. So
he said that?
I think they're going to be turning it around on this one.
I mean, I like Superman a lot. I understand it's a parallel universe thing, so I'm cool with Superman being kind of a dick and getting kind of pushed around. And I think that's I'm not gonna lie. Even though I try to be as nice as I can, I like dickhole Batman. Dickhole, like Batman who's an asshole. He's actually one of the funnest Batmans to read sometimes.
Yeah. No, I just that's what I kind of like about the Frank Miller-ness is that what he does is he takes each character and pushes them in like the farthest direction possible of kind of like whatever their motif is, So Batman, since he always is kind of like the selfish character in a sense, like where he's always planning, he's like preventing like if any of the guys change. So he just makes him so far that way, he's just almost full of himself by this point. Like, I'm so cool. I love my job. Fuck everybody else. Superman, he's a fucking cunt. And he just goes through like that, doesn't trust other people nearly. Superman, they push him so far that he's like the biggest Boy Scout ever, that he's gone, working for like the government and things like that. Wonder Woman, she's such a woman that she's almost just like a man-hater. Green Arrow, he's gone so far left that he's become a communist. That's kind of how he does it with everything.
Flash, he's so fast that he just runs in a hamster wheel now.
Yeah, that somebody decided, hey, this guy can power up half the country.
But it is one of those books where it kind of, so the short and simple of it is, I'm assuming if you listen to this, you probably read the book by this point. But if not, get in for a few spoilers. Nothing new about our show here. But what ends up happening is there's some thugs that are some young kids kind of in a text conversation. Like, oh, Batman saved me today. Batman's not real. Batman's been dead for some time. No, the Bat's back. And then they cut to they've cut to Wonder Woman in the Amazon, like fighting like I think a Centaur or something
it's a
like that.
Minotaur.
And then Minotaur. Then she has a kid with her, and then they actually had a little bit of nudity, which is surprising too. So another thing that you don't see in a whole lot of Batman books. So whenever they actually just show like, hey, that character had done like some Saturday morning cartoons, here's your fucking tit.
Yeah.
That's always kind of surprising.
Well, I will say this: I don't think I've ever seen Wonder Woman's tit in any like official comic book.
Not saying this was like, oh wow, there it is. It's just one of those things. I'm surprised DC okayed it. You know?
Yeah, I don't know if it's at that point because if you think about like the last handful of things that Frank Miller did, weren't like the greatest. It's not like he's coming off his Dark Knight Returns run, and they're kind of almost like, hey, go ahead, do whatever you want. It's sort of like, well, we saw what you did when you did whatever you want, and I don't know, people just didn't seem to like it nearly as much.
But this one's getting good reviews so far. And then we get to like their daughter, I think Lara. Yeah, Lara.
Yeah.
She goes to the Fortress of Solitude to find out that Superman is frozen there. They don't know how. And then she goes to the Atom to ask him, like, oh yeah, so the people of Kandor, they want to be let out of Kandor. They're tired of being small. And then we cut back to
fucking small.
Fuck that shit. Yeah. They spell that in the glass with their heat vision. No, so actually no, it just says help. But then we cut to Batman getting the shit kicked out of him by a bunch of cops. He fights a lot of them off, then gets his ass kicked. Then they take the mask off, revealing it's not Batman, it's Carrie Kelly. And they say, "Where's Bruce Wayne?" She says, "Bruce Wayne is dead." To be continued. So next.
So there's a picture of like Carrie Kelly in here where she's like standing over a bunch of like beaten cops, and then they got what's her name?
Yindel?
Yeah, Officer Yindel's standing over her. But it's just the picture of her just like Carrie Kelly's just like, "Whoa!"
Like she's just squatting down ready to take a shit.
Yeah, like almost. Because that's the point where you're like, oh, it's clearly not Batman because she's got, lips and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Which I think that's cool that Carrie Kelly's wearing the Batman uniform. Because sometimes like the one thing about like Dark Knight Strikes Again, that like it makes sense that like, okay, I guess that like who would take over after Catwoman? Carrie Kelly could wear that costume, but it feels kind of weird. It's like, why don't you just have like the Robin costume on or something like that instead?
Robin, or at least like Batgirl, something, or Batwoman, something like
that. Yeah, I mean, like it makes sense, but then it's also like I just feel like there could be a better choice. So see her wearing the Batman costume, it's just cool to see a woman wearing the Batman costume. I think that's really neat. Even though it's funny because it makes her look like she's extraordinarily huge and buff. I almost want to see what happens when she takes the uniform off and she's just got these huge muscles.
Or it's all built in or something like. I'm not saying like a woman can't be buff.
Yeah, a woman can't have muscles in a Batman.
Woman can't do that. No, I think that it's probably like, yeah, she's probably worked out, but I think it's almost like super like. I mean, I'm guessing they're trying to throw you off or something. Well, even if you look at it, the last page, because for a while it's all over the shoulder and just fist and feet. You can't really get a clear shot of Batman. And then right here, you do see the suit looks a little thinner, like. The gloves aren't entirely fitting her, and she does look a little bulkier. But I'm guessing with obviously Batman's more likely going to come in pretty soon. Or how ballsy would it be if like, nope, he's dead? How ballsy would that be that like the Batman's not even in the book no more? He is actually dead. I could see them doing that just because every book they find something. Well, not every book, but every Frank Miller Batman story, he's got to find some way to push the envelope just a little bit more. And this one's more about, like, Carrie Kelly, possibly. I mean, we'll see. I'm sure Bruce Wayne will come back, but on the chance that he doesn't, Well,
I'm kind of surprised they haven't done, like, a full-on Carrie Kelly book. Because they kind of, like, introduced her, like, in Batman and Robin, New 52, and some other stuff, and then that was, like, it. And I was like, oh, I thought that was going somewhere. No, just want to say she was there. That's it.
There was a rumor, like someone was teasing that Carrie Kelly is Robin in Batman v Superman, which who knows? We'll see what happens. But I mean, the movie already has so much going on. But I mean, if that was the case, that'd be cool. But I really don't know about that one.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just one of those ones like they should just utilize Carrie Kelly. It's one of the coolest characters, but for some reason, it's always been kind of like, I guess it's Frank Miller's character, so maybe that's why nobody wanted to touch her for a while. But later on, though, it's kind of like, you showed her in Batman and Robin. Why can't she, actually end up being just somebody? It was almost sounds like, well, we got Bluebird down instead, so, it's kind of like Carrie Kelly, but, different,
Only she has like a blue mohawk, and she has electricity.
She's got family, and so on.
What's she do? Well, she shares her gender. That's what she has in common.
Yeah, it's just because that's sort of what Bluebird just reminds me of. Like that's supposed to be kind of like Carrie Kelly, but just different. Like almost like we'd get sued by Frank Miller if we actually used Carrie Kelly, so we made our own character. Like it has that feel. But I don't get me wrong. I like Bluebird, but that could have probably been Carrie Kelly.
I think Carrie Kelly. I bet it's one of those things like people don't want to disrespect Frank Miller in any way, because I know that Frank Miller he created Elektra and he killed Elektra, and he had every intention of keeping Elektra dead. But when they started bringing her back to life and having different interpretations of her, that really pissed him off. He's just like, no. Elektra is not a nice person who is forced to do mean things. She is a bad person. She just happens to feel bad about it. Stop making her the nice girl who has to do bad things. That's not who she is. And I think ever since then, even though they still do that, I think maybe people at DC, they don't want to do that with Carrie Kelly. Like, okay, Mr. Miller, we won't touch your shit,
Yeah, that might be the case.
Even though technically it's our shit because we put it under our label, but I think it might be a thing out of just so much respect for him, they kind of leave it alone. Even though she has appeared like in things briefly for a second, like she appeared in like the animated series. I mean, they never said that's Carrie Kelly, but it was blatantly supposed to be Carrie Kelly, the episode where it's like the little anthology where it's the different stories.
The Dark Knight ones.
The 66 one.
Yeah, but well, that's kind of almost like how Harley Quinn was for a while, because for like 10 years, it's like she wasn't in anything but the animated series, and then like the Batman the animated series comic books, and then all of a sudden they threw her in the regular stuff, and then since then now she's in almost just as many books as Batman himself.
I think it was one of those things like, are we allowed to? I think they weren't really sure if they could get away with it, Or not like get away with it, but just like people would accept it. Because I think sometimes there is this immediate prejudice. Like, I know I kind of get it. Like, when I was younger, I'd watch an episode of the animated series. And even though I still really love the animated series, there'd be the one like, who's he fighting? Well, a guy that puts on an invisible suit. Fuck that. He's not in the comics, or something like that.
Yeah, whenever they kind of have like the made-up characters. But I still feel like an animated series, it's like that's an okay place to make up stuff too. The only time that I think it's kind of unnecessary is in a movie, because you only get so many movies. You don't want to waste a movie by making up your own character, unless it's something like the animated one. I'm blanking on what it's called.
Mask of the Phantasm.
Yeah, Mask of the Phantasm. I think that's a little bit different there, but.
Well, it's such a good movie, you forget that.
Well, yeah, but I think because it's a movie off a TV show, so it's not like it's the only one. And I think that's fine, but when it's like a regular movie, if Batman v Superman was like, well, guess what? They're going to fight up some made-up guy instead of, anybody that we could use, just because, we just feel like the other characters aren't that good.
Mm-hmm. Every once in a while, I remember I'd be reading an article saying, like, I think it was like in Wizard Magazine, they're saying, who should be the next Batman villain? And every once in a while, like, one of the art writers just put like, what if it was just a new made-up character? I'm sure they can do something interesting with a brand new made-up character. It's like, shut the fuck up! I'm not here to see what you think. I'm here to see what I fucking know. You just get that primal instinct for a minute. Be like, oh, okay, well, even if they did have a made-up character, I'd still probably end up seeing the movie.
And some of the characters, like when I think of like the animated ones, when they made up characters in there, those are actually some of my favorite characters. Like, I liked Lockup a lot that came from the animated series. Like, he's really cool, and he's not really utilized in too many comics. He's only in like a handful of them, but I think that's one of the best Batman villains, / he's kind of like the Punisher of Batman, which I guess nowadays... Since you got Red Hood.
I'm sorry. I think something's in your microphone real quick.
Oh, I don't know what that is. But since you got Red Hood, it almost makes Lockup feel a little bit kind of like, Red Hood's kind of the same thing. He's pretty much the Punisher of DC, except for he's related to the Batman. Mm-hmm. But and then another character I think is really cool. It's in she came from the Superman animated series. The one
Livewire.
Yeah, Livewire. I think that's one of the coolest characters too. And in Superman, the thing is strangely enough, compared to Batman, he has so much less villains. So it's like that's why I remember like they said like especially just like we got through like a season of Superman and we realized it's like what he's kind of like hit everybody that from the comics. We got to kind of throw in some new blood here. How many times is he going to fight Lex Luthor and Brainiac, Metallo over and over again?
And then, Bizarro, I'm trying to think of all the major Superman villains.
Bizarro,
and that's like
Brainiac, Lex Luthor,
Lex
Metallo.
Luthor, Metallo. Is Mongol, is that a Justice League villain or a Superman villain?
Those are always kind of the confusing ones. Kind of like Darkseid. It's like he's technically not really a Superman villain, but I also think of him sort of as a Superman
He was
villain.
adopted by Superman, more or less, yeah.
But yeah, it's...
You got Mickle McPenzie or whatever his name is, the guy who has a hard pronounced name. There's that guy.
Yeah.
And then which Jeffrey got Jeffrey, what's his name?
The guy who plays
Jeffrey Godfrey or whatever did his voice in like
Gilbert
cartoon.
Godfrey.
I remember that. Gilbert Godfrey, yeah. And then there is also
because like Livewire was played by Lori Petty in that, which I thought was cool.
Yeah, then there's like Parasite, and beyond that though, I guess I can't think of any like real. And then Zod, and beyond that, I can't think of any like major main villains he has.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's like
strange
17... enough for Superman being the oldest of them all. He doesn't have as many that just kind of stick out. Or Batman.
And you even have to kind of think about him for a minute. You have to think about Superman. You could think like the first 4 right off the top of your head, but then the rest of them you have to kind of think. Wait, who else does he have? Oh yeah, there's that guy.
Or Batman, you could just kind of name off like 30 without even having to think too hard.
Yeah.
But so it's not saying that you can't have made up characters and other stuff. I just think the only place that doesn't need made up characters is movies, just for the fact that we only get a movie like every 4 years, so make it count.
It seems like they're kind of almost done with that, like making shit up for the movies. It seems like now they're at the point like, oh, they can just accept it, you know?
Well, I think there was just an age where the people that were making video game movies and comic book movies were older folks that didn't care about it, so they kind of looked at it and kind of picked up the cover of it and go, oh yeah, I got it. Or like I always just felt with some of the video game movies, somebody literally looked at the cover, looked at the back, looked at the cover again, and said, you know what? I got a way how this would work.
Yeah.
And didn't put the effort into it. So now we're finally getting the comic book movies that were people who actually read the comics, and I think that's why these work out. So I'm hoping that like we're right around the corner from video game movies being like, okay, now they're finally made by people who literally play video games.
I wasn't impressed by the trailer too much, but I mean, people got their high hopes for Warcraft.
They got high hopes. They've got high hopes. They've got high apple pie in the sky.
All right, look out! One of our music group is coming out.
Yeah, they're gonna come up there like, "That's Frank. You don't fuck with Frank."
The part when the little kids come in that song, like, he got high. Don't you almost expect just Sinatra being Sinatra, like, you shut the fuck up, I'm singing. Like, partway through the song keeps on going.
Yeah, like, go smoke a cigarette and do something right.
Drink some scotch. Quit being a pussy.
Yeah, don't make me slap the shit out of you. Like, oh, don't hit us, Frank. Yeah, you need a beating now.
The music's still going on. Like, Frank, we're recording. Fuck it. Keep it in.
Fuck it.
They need to know.
Now kids will know that they gotta have to have high hopes. You gotta take a beating.
This is the cost of high hopes. Sing it, kids. High hopes, louder.
You want to be a famous musician? You gotta sing loud. We gotta beat out that Mickey Mouse Club now.
Did he have like? Was that? Because I always kind of wondered. Like, was that like? Was he? Did he have a show or like? Was that some charity thing? You got a bunch of kids singing with them.
I have
or
no
was it like
idea.
Frank's,
I just know it came on my like greatest hits like 4-disc Frank Sinatra thing.
I saw like this is gonna seem off top. We'll go back to comic book shit in a minute, but there's like. That reminds me, there's like there's that Robert Evans. I never read his book, but I read it. I seen his documentary. The kid stays in the picture. It's just the life story of Robert Evans. The guy who did like
they made a movie about it just to so I didn't have to read.
Yeah, simple enough. Simple enough. Yeah, I just went with that. It's like what he tells it to me instead of me having to read. Oh yeah, let's go with that. I don't have to read. Yeah, fuck yeah. No. So anyway, there was a documentary and. He, for those of you who don't know, he was a big movie producer. He produced Godfather 1 and 2. He produced Rosemary's Baby. He produced a lot of
70s movies.
Yeah, he primarily for Paramount Pictures. And he also was just like, he just did a massive amount of coke. He loved cocaine and pussy a lot.
It was the 70s.
At some point, yeah. And at some point, he ended up getting, actually, I remember like in the late, I'm not sure, it was probably him, and it probably just a quick buck. But in like the late 90s, early 2000s, they actually had a show on Comedy Central called Kid Notorious, where he played himself, and he was like a secret agent working for the government, and he uses his like producer Robert Evans as a way to get in and kill people and all that. So, but anyway, and this actually happened to him though at some point. He actually he got busted for a bunch of drugs, so he had to do a hey kids, don't do drugs kind of thing, and a hey, be yourself, and they had this whole big it was in the 80s, so the Reaganism was coming down hard on him.
Yeah.
They have this footage of him with a crowded auditorium with a bunch of kids clapping hands like get high on being yourself. And you just see he has this dead-eyed look in his face, but he's just like, it was my most proudest accomplishment I ever had because my boy told me he loved me that day. Just like be high on yourself, just like, don't fucking lie, dude. You fucking want that pile of coke and pussy back. Don't fucking lie and say that, because you can just see it was just the most cheesiest Reaganism, don't do drugs, kid. It's bad for you.
Just Nancy Reagan says so.
Clapping his hands is that? Oh, that's just a bag of flour. Fuck. All right, yeah. High
you're
on
gonna
yourself.
cook with that, I guess. No, cook it in your nose.
It's flour.
Oh,
I know.
Yeah, but
it looks.
Well, it looks
at it just takes
delicious.
He just takes a handful, just puts it in his mouth.
Do you mind?
Just starts.
I'm just gonna snort it anyways. I mean, I probably won't do anything, but at least give me some feeling.
It just pours out of his mouth while he just munches on it, and they start snorting it. It's at least it has the same texture. It's good. Same texture. Just starts rubbing it on his face.
He just slams his head face down into it oh, this is so good. Oh.
He just starts crying right there in the pile.
But just
get high, just gripping it, just it's seeps through his fingers. He's just high on yourself, high on yourself.
Just the kids clapping just starts to slow down and then stop.
Everyone just quietly leaves.
Watches as this man just breaks down crying in front of a bag of flour.
Why he weeps down face first in his bag, just pours it
I
over his
used to
head.
be someone!
At least I got my mansion back. The IRS didn't take that from me. That was his prized possession in this house, and then he got his house back. So,
yeah, seemed to all work out.
We all learn something new every day, don't we? And I'm sure a lot of people didn't know about Robert Evans' coke addiction, and I don't know, the whole flour thing. That's all bullshit. But I'm just guessing.
Yeah, it made it funnier.
He gets. I'm guessing he gets sad whenever he sees a bag of flour. Maybe even Splenda too.
But
what the fuck were you talking about?
I have no idea. I think last I remember it was Dark Knight 3, but I can't imagine there being too much more for a single issue. All I know is that it's a damn good single issue to start off. And I have no idea how many there's supposed to be here. It just says book 1. So if we base it on other stuff, it means it could be 1 out of 9, 1 out of 4, 1 out of 3. God knows what it can be.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. I'm hoping it's not 4, because this, even though it's good, not a lot happens in this first issue. So I'm hoping I'm guessing they're trying to do the more, because before it's they would have a lot more going on for being single issues. They're more like mini graphic novels, the first couple. Now I think they are doing the more traditional thing where it's okay, maybe it's a little bit longer than your average comic book issue, but on top of that though, it is it's probably going to be more issues, and because I think now people are used to reading a lot more thicker books.
Yeah, because the other ones, it's the Dark Knight Strikes Again. It's it's technically 3 issues, but each issue is a double issue. It's 48 pages or something like that, if not bigger than that.
I'm curious to see what characters are going to go with, because apparently every little mini issue that comes with it, it's going to focus on another character in the Dark Knight universe. So I'm curious to see what other characters they focus on. I guess I'm probably going to get Flash, probably get Hal Jordan, all the major ones. But
yeah. Except for some reason, I just didn't think Hal Jordan was around anymore than that Frank Miller.
No, he comes back in Strikes Again. He comes back in that.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
To project a giant image of himself, and that was very confusing. But yeah.
Yeah, that's the only thing about Strikes Again. There's just some parts in there. It's probably it's a book. The more you read it, the more you get it. But I
had to go back and reread a few parts of it. Wait, what the fuck happened? And just carefully analyze the picture. I'm okay, I guess okay, why is he like a green alien hanging out with like another green alien, and he has a kid with that green alien? They're on another planet. Then, okay, whatever. I'm not going to look too much into it. Just go on.
Well, because there's almost parts in that book too where it's like, if there wasn't a caption that told you who that character was, you'd be like, I would never got that. Like sort of when they show Martian Manhunter, and for some reason Martian Manhunter now his life is he hangs out at a bar and talks like he's been working on like the Brooklyn Bridge for the last 50 years.
He used to be like, I am John Jones.
But I was like, I'm John fucking Jones. What the fuck are you on here in my bar? I'm at the bar, goddammit. I don't got no powers no more. You don't need my help, Mr. No-Face Man.
Fuck you, Question. Question never came. Maybe he did come back. There's a part where Question, maybe he got killed or something in there. Maybe it was just hard to tell because of the images. But Question comes in like, oh, fuck, it's the Question. Hey, Martian Manhunter, how's it going? Fuck you, Question. I got no answers for you.
Questions for you.
You don't got no question for me. I got no fucking answers. Get the fuck out of it. He looks a lot like the Thing.
He really does.
And then,
he talks like the Thing, so I just assumed that that's what he was kind of going for.
I get the vibe that like Frank Miller kind of hates just about every DC character but Batman and
Carrie Kelly.
And what?
Batman and Carrie Kelly.
Carrie Kelly and maybe the Atom.
Yeah, because the Atom's always like done really well. Like everything about him's always good, but some of these other characters you just kind of look at and go, "What the fuck is going on?" Why? He's like Martian
Barry Allen.
He's the most intellectual of them all. Just seems like he's just kind of a moron now.
And dies in a bar on fire.
Yeah, like okay. There was a lot of love put in there for him.
The Guardian gets a bunch of nails in his back and then shot in the head.
The elongated
Barry Allen, he's kind of like. Barry Allen's kind of like, he's like, Barry's a good guy, but he's still a fucking idiot. That's kind of the way he treats Barry Allen. Hal Jordan, it seems like he's cool with Hal Jordan until he does All-Star Batman.
Yeah, he's just like, you're a fucking idiot. You want some lemonade? Oh, I guess you can't have it, but it's okay. It's nice and refreshing.
And I think he's mostly just cool with Batman. Everything else, I'll be 100% honest with you. I don't like anything DC but Batman. Thinking back, maybe I'm wrong here. I'm sure someone could probably point something out, but I think Batman is the only thing in DC he's ever written.
Yeah, that's actually kind of true because he's never written like Green Arrow. Green Arrow's another character that probably he doesn't hate too much because he always seems to be done fine. But
I think he likes Green Arrow.
Because the weird thing is this, like most of the things you think of Frank Miller is like Batman, Daredevil, and then his own stuff like Sin City and 300 and stuff.
I will say I think I do love his line he gives Green Arrow in Dark Knight Returns, like, I get a piece of the schoolboy. Not the whole thing, just a piece. Then he just gestures to his arm. Still hurts when it snows,
I like how I think it's in Kevin Smith when he did Green Arrow. He kind of makes a reference to that. Like when Green Arrow blows up in the plane, he's like, well, Superman could have got me. I just didn't want my arm torn off. And I was like, oh, that's kind of cool, little nod in there, just to relate to how that might have been how Green Arrow lost his arm.
Mm-hmm.
But well, that's probably a good place to wrap it all up with. I can't wait to see what comes next in the Dark Knight 3 universe. But till then, check out oldmanorange.com for more comics. I guess not really comics, but podcasts, music, animations, and more. Till then, I'm Spencer Scott Holmes.
I'm Ryan Dunigan.
And we'll see you some other time.
Later, folks.
Thanks for listening to the Old Man Orange podcast. Check out our website at oldmanorange.com for even more podcasts, cartoons, videos, music, and more. Send us an email at oldmanorangepodcast@yahoo.com. Be sure to subscribe, share, rate, and review us on iTunes, Podomatic, or any of the other fine sites we might be located on. And if you want to help out even more, click on the Amazon or GameStop links on our webpage before you make any purchases there. It won't cost you a penny, but it sends us a little something our way. Thanks again, and tune in next week for more Old Man Orange Podcast.